illustrators, and picture book authors. Entries are open for the Storyteller's Shelf Podcast Consumer Awards. Win a cash prize, a featured interview, and more. Get your work seen, celebrated, and supported. Submit now and join the family.
All right, hi everybody, and welcome back to the Storyteller Shelf podcast, where we explore the magic behind stories and the people who create them. Again, I'm Jackie Garcia Morales, and I'm here with my co-host, Teresa Villarreal, and we are thrilled to introduce another special guest who has turned his passion for art into an amazing career. David Hillman is an illustrator, artist, and picture book author who began his journey in the world of comics before he transitioned into children's literature. He's also the founder of Two Bridges Publishing, where he continues to shape inspiring stories. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And to kick things off, can you tell us a little more about yourself and your journey as an artist, as an author?
Oh, goodness. I've been drawing since I was 6 years old. You guys might be a little younger than I am. When I was a kid, I used to watch those original Spider-Man cartoons. So Spider-Man, Spider-Man. My dad would sometimes like do his level best to draw like a Spider-Man for me. I mean, he had no drawing ability. Just like, a little balloon head with some checkered that looks like webs. One day I asked him, can you draw me Spider-Man? I said, Dave, I don't have time. Here's a pencil. Why don't you do it yourself? And I've been kind of drawing Spider-Man ever since. And it's something that, I just took to. I enjoyed it. Nobody stopped me. And by the time I was ready to go to high school, I applied for the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan, and I got in. I was like maybe one of two students in the entire junior high who went. And I went to art and design. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like, TV show fame, everybody singing and dancing all the time. It's going to be like just a regular high school with an extra art class. And academically, I was never particularly good. And I kind of lost interest. But fortunately, one of my high school friends, who's still a very good friend of mine, was working as an apprentice in an art studio where it was a comic book shop up front. And in the back, we were learning how to draw comics. So I left high school early, like in my junior year. I was asked to leave actually. And I became an apprentice in that comic book studio. And then, we were creating our own comic books. And I turned professional around the age of 19, starting out in comic books, not necessarily drawing them, but doing everything else, production, art correction. And I ended up being a colorist because I had an affinity for color as well. And it was easier to get jobs as a colorist as opposed to penciling. Penciling is very competitive, but you always need a good colorist, which is you're literally taking colored dye and you're coloring the copies of pages, and they put the overlaid word balloons and they print them. So I was doing that for a while. And around the mid-80s, the comic book industry was kind of imploding. So I wasn't getting work. A lot of companies were going out of business. A lot of people I knew were not working. So I had to reinvent myself. Fortunately, this is my early 20s, so I can bounce back pretty easily. So I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? And I think I was looking at it like a DVD. You always see those special features, like that behind the scenes stuff, the process. There was this thing about storyboards for film. I was like, storyboards? It's kind of like comic books. Okay, I think I can do that. Fortunately, I had a relative who's in the film and TV industry. So I did some samples. I showed to him that, Dave, I can't use you, but, give these to someone who might be able to. He was a storyboard artist, but sometimes, if he's too busy, he'll give the work to somebody else. A couple of weeks later, I got a phone call, say, hey, Dave, I can't do this job. Do you want to do storyboards? I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. 25 years later, I'm doing storyboards, still doing storyboards for television commercials and advertising and stuff like that. But I got to the point that it was in 25 years pass, and pandemic was just about to start. And I started thinking, I'm not really having any fun doing this anymore. And storyboards, especially for advertising, are very disposable. The director and the client see the board, and they just kind of toss them away. No one really appreciates them. And I was thinking about, you're 50 years old. What are you going to do with the second half of your career? I looked back and it said, I don't have much of a legacy here. It sounded morbid, well, especially during the pandemic, you have these morbid thoughts. I was thinking, what am I going to do for the second half of my career? What do I want to be remembered by? And I remember my father and I were going to do children's books. He was a children's book writer as well as administrator in New York City Educational, Board of Education. But he writes children's books and kind of like classroom readers that he reads on the side for younger children. And we were going to do a project together, but unfortunately, he passed away around 96 or so, and that never happened. But it was always in the back of my head to do children's books and continue that journey that we wanted to start, but never did. Oh, I was not working. Fortunately, my wife was still working. She was working at home, and she told me, she said, "Dave, we're going to be here for a while. We will be here for a while. I think this might be a good time for you to maybe reevaluate what you want to do. We have the time. We're in a situation where we can get by on her salary, knock on wood, and maybe it's time to like discover what you really want to do." So I took that time to revise my portfolio geared towards go picture books, and I sent them out to all the usual suspects, literary agents, publishers, directors, et cetera, et cetera. And there was no response. I couldn't believe how tough it was to like get a job illustrating children's books. It was much tougher than anything I've ever tried to pursue before because I've always had a job. I did samples. I always getting a job somewhere, but never happened. I was like, what the heck's going on here? How come I can't get work? And it's not because my work is bad by any stretch. So I started writing as well because I had these stories in my head, and I gave myself a deadline, about a year. So if you can't get in the gig illustrating children's book within about a year and a half, you can do it yourself. We live in a great time where you can do these things. You can self-publish and it looks good. It's not like, the old days where I was doing independent comic books and we had to just Xerox copy these books and staple them together. So year and a half passed, didn't get a gig, said, I'm going to do it myself. So that's where Two Bridges Publishing was born. And then I had 3 or 4 stories ready to go. I had the dummies ready to go. I had found a good editor to help me out. And that's really important. Find a good professional freelance editor. The first book, Berkeley, was published and Two Bridges was born. And on my second book, Caleb, is coming out in May. My ambition is to just put out, good quality books, when I can, even if it's just 1 book a year, that's fine. I'm happy with that. And that's where I'm at right now.
But I have to jump in just to celebrate what David said because he uses this word, reinvent himself. And I absolutely adore that word. Exactly. You have to do that in this business. And I appreciate you sharing the trials and the challenges of outreach and just attempting to be present and working in this business. And we are in favor of all types of publishing. Anything that gets you to where you need to be, we are supportive of. But that being said, we are really cheerleading for people to find the same inspiration and ingenuity that you did of saying, okay, it's not working for me this way. By X date is a really good time for me to propel myself forward and just keep going and be resilient and don't be knocked down.
I've reinvented myself so many times because you have to be prepared to move on. Like computer coloring. I was hand coloring comic books for a long time, with colored dyes and stuff. And then computer coloring came into vogue. So I guess I have to learn this now. And I did, just you have to be flexible in this business, so especially a freelancer, or otherwise you're not going to survive. Basically, I've reinvented myself at least 3 or 4 times already. I've done it all.
I feel like we're speaking the same language because I'm constantly also self-published author here that you are having to learn how to grow and evolve. And like you said, if you won't, then you're not going to make it. You won't last. And
Absolutely.
I love how you said you have to pivot yourself. So for me, I think that is great advice for all aspects of the creative side. And could you elaborate a little more about how your experience in creating comic book series, how that prepared you to transition into writing and illustrating children's books?
Both fundamentally the same thing. It's storytelling. You can be artist subjective. One person likes one style, the other person likes another style. This person has this ability, that person has that ability. One may look better than the other, but fundamentally, the common denominator is storytelling. Comic books, movies, Broadway shows, television, picture books. It's all symbolism. It's all creating these symbols and putting them together in composition and tell a story. And well, first, I studied film. While I was learning how to do comic books, I studied, mostly black and white films and silent films and stuff like that. Uh, It's a great way to learn how to tell a story through black and white films, mostly the 30s and 40s and stuff like that. I studied that, and it's a great place to cut your teeth, because you got to learn how to draw everything. You got to learn anatomy, lighting, composition, perspective, fashion. People got to look like, what they are in the modern day or whatever period, you're drawing. And that's why I was able to, transfer from comic books so easily to storyboards. It's the same thing. It's totally the same thing. And storyboards are even easier because there's only so many camera angles you can use. But nowadays with CGI and stuff like that, you can go crazy. But it's a lot simpler in comic books. And you don't even have to be that good to do storyboards. You don't even have to be that talented, as long as you know how to tell a story. And the same thing with children's books. Even more so is you got to learn how to tell a story through pictures, especially the audience, say, out from like ages 3 to 5. That's what they're going to understand. They may not even be able to read yet, or their grasp for reading may not be as advanced. So you got to learn how to tell a story with pictures, and that is the common denominator.
So you told us what was the same for comics and picture books, but I would love to know what is different in terms of illustration and writing when it comes to picture books and comics, and what did you have to learn on the way that you did not know before?
I've never written a comic book. I never really written a story. That it was always somebody else's job. I just followed the script. But now I realize that if I wanted to publish my own books and illustrate my own books, I was going to have to learn how to write, which to me is the toughest part of the creative process, hands down. I know writers who can churn out dozens of stories in a month, and it takes me months to get one right. And it's not even so much the dialogue. That's easy. It's the actual story itself. It's the beginning, the middle, and the end. And learning I hate to say formula, but learning uh how to write the beats that go into a picture book, and not write something that would insult any child too. And that's tough because I don't have kids. So I'm kind of guessing at it. And so I had to learn how to write, and I've gotten better at it, and I want to start doing more complex stories. And it wasn't easy. It took me years to figure out how to write, but now it's getting a little easier, and I understand the formula, for lack of better words. It's a work in progress. It's muscle I had to learn how to flex. Drawing is easy for me. I could, sometimes I'll sketch out the story first and then add the dialogue. So that was tough.
Learning to write for children is a whole other beast. It's that balancing act as an adult, like you said, to make sure you're writing something that's engaging, but it doesn't insult them in
No,
terms of intelligence.
kids are a lot smarter than you give them credit for,
You really are, and they pick up on things so well.
A very good editor, who's extremely experienced. She was writing for Disney Hyperion for 20 years. She was an editor there as well. And she just started freelancing, and she self-publishes as well. And she's great. So that helps a lot. And she taught me a lot. What goes into a good picture book story. So again, it was tough, and it was frustrating because there's a lot of self-doubt. It's like, I don't know, this could suck. Yeah. This does suck, does it not suck? Am I insulting a kid's intelligence? Am I insulting my intelligence? Is this something that I want to read as a 3-year-old? Since I don't have kids, the only frame of reference I have for children is me as a child. So I have to remember what it was like to be a 4 or 5-year-old enjoying a children's book. What's the ones that I enjoyed?
Let me ask you, you mentioned that you have to learn the beats to writing a picture book. Could you tell us what are the beats in your experience?
In my experience, well, good hook. Start off strong. This is kind of like a roller coaster. Someone told me once, and you start off strong with a good hook, and you don't beat around the bush. You just go straight to the story. You go straight to the problem. You introduce your character. You find out what the character is all about. You figure out what the problem is, and then how to solve it. and there's some sort of discovery about themselves. And then there's the ending, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So those are kind of the beats.
Sounds so simple, right? But it's not that simple.
It's not that simple. Yeah, someone broke it down from us. Wow, that makes sense. Yeah.
I am inspired by the fact that you have your own publishing house. I think that is fantastic. Especially as an artist, an author, illustrator, all of it. As a creative, you want to be able to have that control. I think that's just in our genetics as creatives.
Yeah, I don't take it. I don't like people telling me what to do. I'm at age just like, don't tell me what to do, punky. I got socks older than you. Yeah.
I love it. What inspired you to create your own publishing house? Creative control, or where did that come from?
It came from, like I said, no one was hiring me, and I wanted to tell these stories. So the only avenue I had available was to create my own thing. And I've been a freelance illustrator for almost 30 years, doing what everyone else wants me to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've had good jobs, I've had fun jobs, and I've had not so fun jobs. But in the end, the common denominator was like people were telling me what to do and what they wanted. And it's gotten to the point where I'm at an age where I want to do what I want. And fortunately, I'm in a position where I can. Another key thing is having a really good support system. I know I'm kind of segueing a bit, but having a great support system. Fortunately, I have my wife who's very encouraging, and she lets me do what I need to do to get this going. And she's been great. I'd be in the tall grass without her. Really, I'd be in the weeds. I'm very lucky to have that. So that allows me to do what I want to do after all these years. And that's also something very important to have if you're going to do this. You can't do it. You can do it. A lot of things by yourself, but there's some things you just can't. Just you need help. Yeah, and you need someone to be there and support what you're doing. It helps a lot. Plus, it's a lot of fun to share those triumphs with somebody. Yeah, I mean, I'm sharing with everyone on social media, but it's not the same.
David, can you walk us through a typical day?
In a life, I usually get up early in the morning, help my wife get ready for work. I take her to the bus. She goes. I go to the gym for about an hour, get some breakfast or make some breakfast, come back here, clean up. And there I start my day. And my day could vary, illustrating the next picture book or maybe doing some freelance on the side, which I still do. But I pick and choose now, freelance, assignments. Uh, there's a lot of, again, it's just me, so I'm doing a lot of other stuff, say, like, getting a newsletter out, updating my website, soliciting my books to whomever I need to solicit them to, social media, which is a huge portion of my day, trying to let people know what's going on. But if I'm doing a book, I try to get a book spread done at least every 3 days. I work in Adobe Illustrator pretty much exclusively now, so I try to get one at least every 3 days. Sometimes it takes longer. All depends the complexity of the page. And after that, I start prepping dinner, stuff like that. I pick up my wife. We have dinner, hang out, chill out for a little while. She usually goes to bed early, and I do a little more work. And I'm probably in bed around midnight or so, and rinse and repeat. It's pretty mundane life. It's pretty so boring. It's okay to take a day off and not do anything. There's some days during the week it's like, I'm just gonna sit and watch a movie. And fortunately, I have that luxury. There are days where it's okay to take a break. Especially it's a nice day, go walk, go to museum, something. You need that break time.
Yeah, exactly. That needs to be words of wisdom for all creatives to know it's okay to take a break because you have to recharge yourself.
When I was young, yeah, when I was younger, I can work like 12-hour days, weekends, holidays, stuff like that. And I then go out and hang out with my friends and go to movies and come back and do a couple more hours afterwards. But you reach a certain point in your life and like, I can't do that. That's why I kind of got out of storyboards too, because a lot of it's like these really tight deadlines. You're working weekends, you got to pump out like 70 frames over the weekends. It's like I can't do that anymore. And like keep my sanity. It's very stressful mentally and physically. Drawing is a very physical thing. Oh, you just sit there and draw? No, it's a very physical activity, creating a piece of illustration. And a lot of people don't realize that. And it's a lot of physically, mentally draining work when it comes down to it's work. A lot of people don't realize that. Like, oh, you can do that in 10 minutes. Yeah, but it took me 30 years to learn how to do that in 10 minutes. Yeah.
I think that's, yeah, something that a lot of people don't realize, that the mental and physical exhaustion that comes with it. And that actually is one of the questions I was going to ask you is,
Yeah, shoot.
one of the biggest challenges that you might face? Like, what would you say? Is there like one or more than one challenge that you owning your own publishing house? What would that be?
Promoting myself. I'm a bit of an introvert and I don't like being upfront. But in order to make the connection between the the work and the person, if you're upfront, that makes the work more personable. See that there's someone behind this. I've never been like the front man. I see sometimes I see like comic books is like a band. When I was doing comic books, there's the drummer, there's the guitarist, bass player, keyboard, and then there's the lead singer. I never wanted to be the lead singer. I wanted to be the guy in the back playing the drums and the bass, just keeping the rhythm. And that's a challenging part, like being up front and being a performer, for lack of better words. My dad was a teacher for a while and he hated it. It's like, he equated being a teacher to like being a stand-up comedian, at open mic night at 3 a.m. in a bar in Ohio, and you're being heckled by 30 or 40 really mean drunks. He said, I never wanted to do that again. So that's why he became an administrator. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. I get it. Yeah. And I really didn't want to be upfront. But because I'm the publisher and owner of Two Bridges, I have to be. So that's a big change. I'm the lead singer now and the roadie and, the production manager and bus driver and, the craft table guy, and I'm everything.
David, I feel like this profession in general tends to attract a lot of those stereotypical introverted,
Yeah.
quiet, creative people.
Yeah.
And I'll admit we have more than just you here that fits that profile.
Absolutely.
But because you work on this every day, like you said, you've had to become lead singer and every other part of the band to make this work. Can you give one way that you can sort of go past your comfort zone daily to help you support your either authorship or being an illustrator?
And like I said, just having to be upfront, and especially when you're freelance illustrating and there's nothing going on and you have to basically beg for work and you're constantly emailing, say, hey, I'm Dave, you got anything coming up, blah, blah, blah. Fortunately, I just signed with an art rep, Jones Book art rep, and yeah, and she does a lot of that now. And I work with art reps all the time, and yeah, they take a percentage and that's fine, but they earn it because they're doing all the contracts, they're making all the inquiries and the queries and stuff like that, and that helps. But like I said, being a self publisher, you got to do it all yourself. You got to like email 500 bookstores, and hopefully one of them will pick up your book, and that's discouraging. Especially like I said, I think we were talking about this earlier. I spent a lot of money last year to promote my first book, Berkeley, and nothing happened. Unfortunately, I sold less than like maybe 30 books. And that's very disheartening because you put your time, your energy, and your passion into these books. And I know I'm putting out a quality product. I could see I could see a book of my quality being in a Barnes and Noble or any bookstore in the world. But it's just very tough to get your book in front of people. So you have to do things that take you out of your comfort zone, like being upfront and going to bookstore managers with your book and try and sell it.
Thank you for sharing that because sometimes it feels a little secretive, especially for people who are in the self publishing game. They see what they perceive as success from other people who are publishing,
Yeah.
but there are no stats or data coming out only sometimes. So to hear, okay, this is my first book, it was a quality product, and I only sold this amount, that's actually really great for people to know. Because, like you said, and Teresa and I discussed this ad nauseum on this podcast, but you can be the best at everything in this business. And a lot of it comes down to creating your own opportunities, going out of your comfort zone to be in the right place at the right time with the right people. And these are all things you can learn to do, but it takes some time and it
It
usually
does.
doesn't have anything to do with the quality of what you do.
No, and unfortunately, I'm not particularly a patient person by any stretch because I'm a New Yorker. Media gratification. Yeah, I don't think it's even like so much it's like good or bad. It's like what's trending. There are trends. I mean, there's one agent that told me, Dave, I like your stuff, but I wouldn't be able to sell it to like a publisher because you just don't check in the boxes. Like, oh, okay, whatever those
Yeah.
boxes may be. Understand that. It's about trends too. If your book doesn't fit a certain trend that's at that point in time, they'll pass you over. And that it has nothing to do whether it's quality or not. So I learned that the hard way too. So that's another reason why I went the self-publishing route, because I'm going to tell the story that I want to tell, trendy or not. And I think the difference between trendy and what I'm doing is my books will last 50 years from now. And long after I'm gone, my books will still be there, and they'll still be readable. Yeah. I mean, how many books came out during the 5 years of the pandemic about the pandemic? You know, those kinds of books only have so much of a shelf life. My books will have an ongoing shelf life long after I'm gone. And I think that's the difference. And that's how I approach my storytelling, my writing. What's gonna have a shelf life? You know, I haven't done like a holiday book or anything like that, because there's only like a holiday niche window. When you put out a Christmas book, it's only going to sell Christmas. And that's it. So I tend to avoid those, and I just try to write stories that be timeless. You have to keep that in mind when you're approaching a story. It has to be timeless. Good Night Moon, Madeline, Eloise. These books have been on the shelves for decades, and that's, I think, you have to approach it. My book needs to be on a shelf for decades, and that's how I see it. That's tough. I've had to learn patience too. You know, and that wasn't easy at all for me to be patient. And I sat myself down and said, Dave, you're playing the long game here. You know, this is not just put out a book and you'll sell 100,000 copies. Now, this is going to be, you know, what you're going to be doing for pretty much till you can't do it anymore. 'Cause I'm 56, so I realized that my shelf life is a little less than it was behind. So I sound morbid, that's true. And if I'm lucky, I got another 30 years of like lucid, creativity. as long as here in this court still works. I want this to succeed. And like I said, it's tough because there's a huge glut of picture books. Like I said, it's easy to publish now. Anyone can do it, but everyone has been doing it. Everyone has been doing it. And like I said, there's like pretty much 98% of what's out there is not ready for prime time from my personal perspective. From professional perspective, like I've been doing this 30 years. I know good illustration from bad illustration, and good storytelling from bad storytelling. And all I see a lot of, especially on Amazon, KDP, it's great, but it's also, it doesn't discriminate at all. So anyone can do it. And it's tough to get your book that you know is quality to get above the noise, the flotsam and jetsam. It was a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. I guess everyone realizes that after a while.
I'm going to contradict myself. I usually tell Teresa all the time, be patient, be patient. It's that kind of business. You just have to wait. You have to forget about things after you do them and come back to them like a year later. But just one time, I will admit, okay, a little impatience can do you well. It can be your impetus to trying to chase those goals. So Teresa is laughing at me right now for people who are listening on audio, but I give her the permission now to be a little impatient because it did David well.
Hey, storyteller. You know what pairs perfectly with a great podcast? A great cup of coffee. Set the mood with us. Sip something bold or cozy with free reign coffee. When you grab a bag through our affiliate link, you're not just fueling your day. You're helping us keep this podcast sustainable. And even better, with each purchase, Free Reign Coffee gives back, supporting charities like the Special Operations Warrior Foundation and others that stand behind first responders, teachers, and veterans. So go ahead and join us as a storyteller and a changemaker.
I am going to put us in another rabbit hole
Okay.
to get lost in.
Okay.
I would love it if you could speak as an illustrator to our new emerging authors. So pretend you have in front of you someone who is very new to the business. They want to self-publish. They're an author. So they know that they have a finished manuscript that's ready to move on and be paired with illustrations. Could you tell us what the actual illustration process is as soon as you get that manuscript? What happens next?
Well, what happens next is we start discussing about what the main character is going to look like, what they have in mind, of course. And then I'll start doing some rough sketches of the characters. That could go around for a couple passes. Once that's approved, then I'll read the manuscript and I'll start doing rough sketches, thumbnails really, and I'll show the thumbnails to the client, and then we talk about it. I'll start doing some roughs, which are more detailed sketches, a little bigger, you know, about half size of a regular page. maybe printed size. And I do the roughs based on their manuscript. And then we go for like a round of revisions again. Then I'll start tightening things up. And then I'll start doing tighter drawings. And once those are approved, then I'll move on to color roughs. And from there, once those are approved, then I'll start doing final illustrations. And from there, they kind of get about maybe like one more round of revisions if they want them. That's why I like working digitally in Adobe Illustrator, very editable. And I work in layers and things. I can move things around almost like color form. So you ever play with color forms when you were kids? And I can move things around, any way I want. I love it. And so we do one more of those, and then I hand in the final files, usually like either PDFs or JPEGs. And I don't know, depending on what the author wants to do, if they want to self-publish, because if a writer wants to solicit a agent or a big publisher, they'll assign an illustrator to the story. So with independent authors, that's kind of how I work.
Let me ask you about text. How do you choose fonts?
I usually go with Roman time. It's pretty easy to read. It's big text, it's simple, and I try to be consistent with those throughout, all my books.
Do you have a publishing house? And let's say somebody is considering, you know what, I'm going to go that route. I'm going to make my own publishing house. What is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Have your stories ready to go before you start. Have a publishing plan. I had stories ready to go. I had the book dummies ready to go. And I have two more in this phase. I call it phase 1. Phase 2, after phase 1 is done, I'm going to take a year and start writing some new stuff. Why those first 4 books will be in circulation, and I'll start writing again. And like I said, it's just me, so it takes a little more time, and I'm okay with that. It's quality over quantity as far as I'm concerned. So just have a plan, have something of a plan, and just make sure when you name your publishing company, make sure no one else is taking it first. I did that first in New York. You can see if no one's taken that name yet, and then not copyrighted Two Bridges Publishing. There's a way to do it in New York. There's you can register your name as a business. So I did that first, and just have some sort of like game plan. Even if the game plan like goes off the rails, that's okay. You improvise that, and then you stick to some sort of plan.
Okay, David, tell us what is coming next for you and Two Bridges. What's on the agenda for the future?
Well, like I said, Caleb's coming out, and I'm going to promote that. And I got to catch up on some freelance stuff next month or two. I also do licensing art, which is like I create artwork of a product. Let's say like Christmas cards, party goods, stuff like that. I have to catch up. I got to do some new stuff because my rep has been like hounding me for new work. And so I got to do that. I got to catch up on that. I got a couple freelance gigs lined up next month or two. And around end of May, I'm going to start my next book, which is called From Another Star. And that is about a young boy who's interested in astronomy, who runs into a friend from another star through his telescope. And after that, I have one more book in phase 1 called Clown Who Ran Away from the Circus to Join a Home. And that's kind of autobiographical, actually, because when I was 18, I ran away and joined the Big Apple Circus as a roadie. And I did that for a summer. And I spent the whole summer going up and down the East Coast, putting up circus tents and taking them down, being an usher. My friends were clowns and aerialists and stuff like that. And it was a 5-month tour. And by the end of the tour, all we wanted to do was run away from the circus and join a home. We were so burned out. It was grueling. It was like boot camp and summer camp for adults. And it was fun when you're 18, but you burn out after a while. And it's about a little clown who comes from a family of clowns who doesn't want to be a clown. So he runs away to the circus and joins a home. And, it's like, look, a house with no wheels. This is great. And that's the 4th book in phase 1. And then after that, I have ideas for phase 2. And I got to start. I've been kind of like, just jotting down ideas. And I just keep going at it till I can't anymore.
Would you give us a little overview of Caleb for people who aren't familiar?
Caleb is about a tiny little dinosaur whose arms are really small. And he's really frustrated because his arms are small. He can't play sports. He can't swing a bat. He can't toss, can't throw a basketball. And try writing on a chalkboard when your hands are kind of like, so tiny. You got to do this, And but one day, feeling sorry for himself, he discovers a dance studio and swinging to the music, and he starts dancing. You ever see the film Billy Elliot? Yeah, it was inspired by that. And he discovers his love for dance. And yeah, I don't want to spoil it, so no, that's where it is.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you guys.
Like
You guys have been wonderful.
your whole journey and is such an inspiration, I think, for all creatives out there. And that, like, I feel like the motto should be never give up, no matter the highs, the lows. You just keep on going, keep on trekking. Your work is incredible and
Thank you. I appreciate it. Like it's
so
been a long
amazing.
road. Like I said, it's a skill you practice. It's like being a basketball player. LeBron James spends 30 hours in the gym doing layups every day between games, and he's good because he practices. So it's same thing. You gotta have the spark for it, you gotta have the love, but love will only take you so far, and you just have to practice your craft like anything else, like singing or playing the piano or playing the drums or whatever, or dancing, applying yourself. It's a spark, but it has to be cultivated. Like any good plant or vegetable, it's feed it and let it grow.
I like that. So, could you share before we go, what keeps you inspired? What keeps you going?
Fear of being destitute. I don't want to sleep under a bridge. Basically. I've been a very blue collar kind of freelance illustrator. Drawing is what I'm good at. I'm terrible at anything else. It's either like drawing or customer service, and that's it. It's about survival. A lot of my comic book colleagues are very blue collar. They're like, they get up, they do, they try to get a couple pages out a day, and then they, spend time with their family and watch the ball game. That's the kind of how I grew up in that generation of, like, we're not rock stars. We're just like working people who are trying to support our families, and this is how we do it.
We are working people. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize because you just read the book at the end of the day. They don't really remember or know or are even aware of how much work daily for perhaps even years goes into the creation of a book.
I was in the bullpens, and we were constantly 2 weeks behind deadlines, and we worked days and nights and stuff like that. And it was grueling. I learned a lot, but it's grueling. And it's work. Yeah. When it comes down to it, it's work I enjoy. It's work that nothing there isn't anything else I'd rather do. But in the end of the day, I want to like enjoy my life as well. I got things outside of drawing, of illustrating. So I try to keep that in perspective.
The life work balance is really important. Can be hard to find that balance, but I think if you have a talent, and not to go too philosophical, but a purpose in life, you often feel like, I can't really do anything else. This is it. And you're just called to keep working on it and to keep improving. And then eventually to just work in that sphere 100%. And that's what I'm feeling happened with you. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to connect with that.
I feel I'm the luckiest son of a gun on planet Earth. No kidding. I feel I wake up every day and I get to do what I want. And 99.9% of the time, I really enjoy it. And there's nothing I read, especially now that I can do what I want. And there's this wonderful feeling of freedom being able to do that. And I am so fortunate to be able to do this. And I try not to take it for granted. I'm so fortunate I have a great support system. Like I said, having that is half the battle.
Well, David, we are the fortunate ones today being able to sit down and have a conversation with you.
I'm so happy you guys invited me. Like I said, I don't get out much, so I don't get to talk to like-minded people too often.
And make sure, storytellers, to listen again for our next episode of the Storyteller Shelf podcast.